Museum of Contemporary Art Denver presents Mixed Taste, tag team lectures on unrelated topics. Tonight's unlikely pairing, the Civic Revolution and Infal Records with Evan Weissman and Juan Fuentes. Please welcome your host, Bobby LeFebre.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? All right. Well, welcome to Mixed Taste 2024. I'm Bobby LeFebre. I'm a writer, performer, cultural worker, Colorado Poet Emeritus, co-curator of Mixed Taste, and host for the last 2 years. By a round of applause, how many of you have been to a Mixed Taste event before? All right. And how many of you, this is your first time? Lovely. Well, whether this is your first or your 50th, welcome. The Holiday Theater is MCA Denver's home for music, performance, and events. Now, if you have been to one of these before, you probably have seen my face. So this moment right now does not matter. It's lovely, I promise you. But tonight, we do have a Q&A that makes this process super, super fun. We're going to put a QR code here on the screen to show you how you will participate with us. Because at some point tonight, we're going to have a Q&A with both of our speakers, and you're going to want to send us some really cool questions that connect both topics. If for whatever reason this QR code is not working for you, pull your phones out now. Go ahead and play with this, get settled. You can go to slido.com and enter code MIXEDTASTE, all one word. Now, we have an icebreaker question that's in there currently that we are going to process here together. And that question is, what's your favorite independent record company, and what kind of music do they publish? And so you can see here, we've got Fueled by Armed and My Guilty Pleasure Music, Tim Waltz. We've got, JD Loves Couches. I love that. I don't know if that's, I love couches too. I'm not quite sure if that's a record label or not, but if not, hey, who knows? Let's see here. The thing moves fast, so you get it. We're going to be getting these questions. We're going to be fielding them, and then we're going to, at the end of the night, we're going to give a prize to the person who makes the best connection between our topics tonight, which is the Civic Revolution and Infal Records. All right, so Mixed Taste is a mashup series where we bring together two experts who each present on a different topic, and then we have a live question and answer period on both topics at the same time. The rules are very simple. The first speaker talks for 20 minutes, and then the second speaker speaks on a completely unrelated topic for an additional 20 minutes. During the first part of the program, no connections are allowed, but during this Q&A we're talking about anything can happen. So between the talks tonight, we're going to play a quick game. We also have a poet in the building who's going to give us an original poem after sitting through these conversations tonight, inspired by what we learned together. But you all ready for our first speaker? All right. Me too. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite ones of this season. Evan Weissman is the director of Warm Cookies of the Revolution, a civic health club that blends innovative arts and culture with crucial civic conversations. Prior to founding Warm Cookies of the Revolution, he spent 12 years as a company member of the collaborative Buntport Theater Company, winning over 100 awards as playwright, director, designer, and actor. Evan was awarded the Roddenberry Fellowship, a Livingston Fellowship, as well as the Colorado Governor's Award for Creative Leadership and Parr Widener Civic Leadership Award. He was a Denver Commissioner on Cultural Affairs and Creative in Residence at the Denver Art Museum, as well as a U.S. Ambassador for the Royal Society for the Arts. Evan teaches courses on nonviolent social action at Colorado College. He was a founding organizer of Colorado Bend the Arc, a Jewish partnership for social and economic justice, and co-founder of the Denver chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace, Free Palestine. Welcome, Evan Weissman!
Well, that was ridiculously long. Sorry about that bio. Hey, I just wanted to thank everyone here at the MCA. It's an honor to be here. So thanks to Sarah and to Dele and Alex and everyone, the whole crew, everyone who's set up, everyone who's going to clean up after us. They don't usually get a round of applause, so let's give them one. And I'm honored to share the stage with Bobby and Franklin and Juan. So, okay, Civic Revolution. I think we need to start with what the hell is civics, right? I learned in school a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and I have no idea what that means. I've never used it, and I don't know what I would use it for. And I think for a lot of people, civics is the same kind of thing. You may have taken a class at some point, vaguely know it maybe has to do with voting or elections or government or something. So let's start with some questions. So first thing, and I like to ask people this a lot, is just shout out to me, what do you own? Just shout it out. Car? Home? Clothes? Anything weird? Go weird. A dog? A pine cone? A bat? Okay. What was that? Muscle what? Oh, phone. Okay, cool. I heard muscle. So why don't any of us think about roads, buses, jails, libraries, schools, the internet, radio waves, drinking water, the air we breathe? Everyone in a community owns all of these things collectively, and taking care of these things is both a privilege and a responsibility, and that is what I mean when we say civic. Okay, do me another favor here. Close your eyes this isn't like a Gallagher show. Like, close your eyes, I'm not going to mess with you. And just picture walking around your neighborhood or wherever it is you live and play. Just kind of stroll around a little bit. Now, I'm going to ask you a few things. So how is the air quality? Just think about it. This isn't participatory. How's the air quality? What kind of transportation is available? What sorts of jobs or industries are nearby? What kind of housing is there? Do you feel safe? Do most of the people look like you? Do you have access to nature? Are the roads and the sidewalks maintained? What kind of food is available? Okay, now you can open your eyes. I wish there was like, and the stage is all different now. Why? Ask yourself why. Who decided to create your community this way? When? How? Your community was not created by a vote. It happened over time by a series of decisions. And so when we say civic, we're not just talking about voting in elections. So actually, by a show of hands, how many people do not know what they're going to do in the presidential election in November? You don't know who you're going to go vote for or if you're going to vote. Raise your hand if you do not know. Okay. So there's no need to talk about it, is how I feel, honestly, about this. So now, same thing. Who has strong opinions on the area planning process that's been taking place in Denver over the past year or two? What a nerdy group. Okay. I didn't even think there'd be that many hands. That's great. That's beautiful. Okay. These are going to drive development in our city for the next probably 20 years for deciding what kind of housing there'll be, what kind of commercial development, all sorts of different things. What can change our neighborhoods? So another show of hands. Do you have strong opinions on the role that forgiveness should or should not play in our community? Okay. What about obedience? What about friendship? Okay. So a civic culture is having an allegiance to and caring for your community in the same way that in our current culture, which is by and large about being an individual and a consumer, makes you have a strong opinion about where you spend your money, right? Like, I shop local, I boycott Amazon, or whatever it is, I shop at Target, I don't shop at Walmart, or whatever your thing is. Those are consumer choices, and they're important, but it's not quite the same. So another show of hands. In the last year, how many people watched something on Netflix? Okay. How many people went to a music show, concert? Okay, what about sports, a sporting event? Religious institution of some kind? Okay. Now, how many people went to a meeting about budgeting in the community? Yeah, my nerds, you're still here. What about building codes, zoning, school board meetings, meetings about drinking water or air quality? Okay. So the Netflix and the NFL, they want you to participate, and they design and market to you with that assumption that you want to, and they make it easier for you to participate. Here, it's at this time, this is how much it costs. We will sell you a deal on beer. Now, what about those civic meetings? Did you even know those processes are taking place? Were the meetings in your language? Was there childcare? Were they child-friendly? Are they at accessible times and locations? And most importantly, did you believe that going to these meetings and attending them would actually make a difference? So those meetings and those processes, by and large, are boring, and you only show up usually for two reasons. One, you've been told at some point in your life that your voice counts and that it matters that you go, and you were trained that way. Or when it's too late, you find out something is being imposed on you and your community, and now you're going to try to do it, and it's too late. So the question that I'm thinking about all the time is this: where do we go to experiment with democracy and with civic culture so that we're not always reacting to things every day? Where do we do that every day? So scientists learn chemistry with beakers and Bunsen burners or whatever the hell they do. I don't know what scientists do. But they have a place to do it in their labs. And chefs have ingredients and stoves. What do we have for our civic culture? Where do we do that? How do we learn to use civic power? And so I think that we experiment in our communities, gathering with neighbors and sharing resources, crafting legislation, and celebrating our cultures. So I'm going to show you two videos tonight. This first one is, this is a look at the stuff that my organization called Warm Cookies of the Revolution that we've done for the past 12 years, where you can go to our website and Instagram and see all sorts of stuff. But essentially, we create programs, and here I'll have you check it out.
Warm Cookies of the Revolution, we are a civic health club. It's a place where you go to exercise your civic muscles. The way that you would go to a gym for your physical health, and you want to look good if you go to a gym. You want to see results. Well, the same way for our civic life, but where do you do that? Where do you possibly go where you can meet with other people in the community and you can engage and you can wrestle with and disagree and figure out, who owns what, who makes decisions in your community? But the main issue is that for most people and most parts of our community, it's boring and it's difficult. So what we do at Warm Cookies is we try to lower the barriers to entry. We always have childcare. We always have interpretation for different languages. We make it fun because our competition is Netflix. Our competition is church. Our competition is sports. Our competition is music shows and movies. That's where people spend their time and their money, if they have any of it, after working really hard and raising their families. So we owe it to our community to make the programs we do as absolutely fun and meaningful as possible. And it's going to be something cultural or artistic so that people want to come and engage in these issues, and then they leave knowing and having tools to what they can do to take action. What we've been doing for decades in this country doesn't work. And we know it doesn't work because civic life has become voting. And civic life has become a red team, blue team. And we know that what we're doing gets past that, gets deeper than that, and ultimately has the ability to transform our communities in a way that voting and partisanship never will and never has.
Okay, so we work generally in 3 geographic areas, and I want to focus on 2 of them tonight. So that had a lot of the stuff in urban, but over the past many years, we've been doing a lot more in suburbs and in rural Colorado. So we developed these programs that I'm going to skip through really fast with you that can be adapted. In some places they make sense, and in other places they don't. So just some real quick ones here. So the Huddle, we do sports and politics, meet in sports bars and talk about political issues. The People Versus is essentially a mock trial where we put on trial things that don't normally go on trial, like God, like artificial intelligence, like the idea of having children, masculinity. These are things that we do. Sunday School for Atheists. This is where we really dig into those ideas I mentioned before of forgiveness, friendship, loneliness. So let's see, Tax Day Carnival. It's the weird one in the middle there. That's, it's a day of mourning for most people. So we flipped it and we're like, let's make a carnival and celebrate what we care about in the community and whether you hate taxes or love taxes. This machine has a soul. That we worked on for years with residents. We were pushing something called participatory budgeting. The mayor did not want to do it. Most of city council did not want to do it. And we used really weird art to train each other and to engage people. And we won after about 5 years. And this year is the second year that participatory budgeting is something you can do in Denver. We are critical of some of it, but we're also proponents of it. So let's see, some other ones. I'm going to just skip through here. What are we on? Stupid questions, stupid talents. We ask questions like, where does my poop go when I flush? And the answer is it's magic, so we have a magician there. But then we also have someone from Denver Water to come and talk about how that system works. Eco-disaster fashion show is exactly what it sounds like. Let's see, I'm going to just move through some of these. But so these are different ones that we can do, and we can repeat them, and we have. So we make videos, we make books, and we also do live events. So like, these books here, as all of our work is, it's pay what you want. And we try to make it as accessible as possible. So the blue book there is in 8 languages. The other one is in 2. And for those of you that keep score about the 2 lectures tonight, the one in black and white is written by your host, Bobby LeFebre. And the photos are by Juan Fuentes. Yeah. So, but I want to tell you about our work in Aurora, who's leading it and why and what's going on. So, the 3 young women there, that's Tumara, Miriam, and Aini, and I'll tell you about them in a second. So more people in the United States live in suburbs than in urban and rural areas combined. And of the roughly 3 million people who live in the Denver metro area, less than a third live in Denver. So more people are moving to Denver suburbs because of displacement, because of immigration, refugee resettlement programs. So these places are becoming these hubs of cultural, racial, ethnic, and linguistic diversity. 1 out of every 5 people who lives in Aurora was born in another country. So these municipalities were not prepared, by and large, for the financially or culturally, to offer services for this change in the population and the boom there in terms of housing, language access, healthcare, just you name it. And so a lot of these suburbs were created for white flight, they were created for cars, and they were created for corporate businesses, and that is not what is there now. And so these 3 young women and 4 others, they all ran a program for 6 months in Aurora where they just met with people, and they'd find out about you, and they'd say, okay, hey, where do you want to meet? And then wherever you said, this coffee shop or library or park or whatever it is, once they met, they'd take a picture of you, and then we had different artists make portraits of these people. And they asked questions about how connected they are to Aurora and what's good, what's bad, what they want to see change, et cetera. And that was very interesting. But what was most interesting to me was exemplified in this picture. So these 3 in particular, Aini and Tumara and Miriam, went to a bunch of city meetings in Aurora. And they looked like this. There were 4 people there. There were 7 people there. There were 12 people there. And they were all white, mostly older. And they were welcomed in. But it was very clear this wasn't their space. It wasn't a space that historically had been theirs. And they could feel that. And so what's going on now is a project that they're leading. And it's called the Aurora House Parties Project, and we're still raising a bunch of money for it, but we're paying people to be civic, to lower all those barriers that I mentioned before about childcare and timing and work and language access. It's not going to solve those things, but it's going to help. And essentially, people are going to get money to have a party at their house, at the mosque, at a park, wherever, doing whatever it is they like to do. So they'll get food. Some folks did it just a few weeks ago. They did henna, they painted these bags, and they had food. And And they're also going to get paid to do these trainings that the woman who's leading the project named Jane, she's done a lot of work. She's from Kenya, and she does a lot of work in the community in Aurora. And she's going to be organizing trainings for people to go to so that at the end of these parties, folks can say, hey, here's something that's going on. Here's the next step. Here's how you can be civically engaged. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. Okay, the last bit that I want to tell you about is the work that's going on in rural areas. So it's called Future Town. Over 60% of rural youth live in civic deserts. So these are defined as places that don't have opportunities for civic and political learning and engagement, and they don't have institutions for, that typically provide after-school programs or arts and culture organizations, et cetera. So the national narrative mistakenly often refers to this as the white working class, and even though the data suggests otherwise. So in rural areas of Colorado, there are shrinking numbers of people, but there are rising numbers of people of color. And many of these folks have been here 8 generations, 12 generations, 15 generations. Chicano folks, been here since before this was the United States. And then you also have a lot of folks who are immigrants and refugees. And in fact, Colorado from 2000 to 2019 was the fastest growing state for black immigrants. There was a 400% increase over that span versus the state of Colorado was growing by 34%. So it's still a small number that we were dealing with, but it's huge growth. So the stuff that we've done, it's all led by Adrian Molina. It's been all over the state, but the primary focus has been in the San Luis Valley. I'm working with all sorts of regular folks in Alamosa, Fort Garland, Center, Walsenburg, Leadville. So I'm going to show you a very short video, and then we'll be done.
The wheels of justice is dedicated, is that old school going all the way back to 1914. Maestas case, Alamosa, Colorado, 9/23/23. The lowriders, muscle cars, and scrapers keep the wheels of justice in motion, transforming the hopeless into art, reforming the depressed and the addicted, shooting stars that break norms and destroy the limited mind state of education. It's more than a written down essay. This is Earth School essay, and we got new school ways of passing down real world knowledge. Change the game with or without college, but we will fight for our rights to an education of our choice, informed by our style and our voice. Throw down that oldie but goodie 1990s golden era rap sound. San Luis Valley skyscape in the background. Fresh burners and murals to recolor the town. Hit me with that backdoor burrito. Smothered red and green Christmas style chiquito. And a handheld burrito for the road, eh? Give me that homemade pozole and bizcochitos. With that live Chicanito hip-hop, that ancestral futurism where the colors on the hood and the trunk pop, with the shine on those rims and those spokes lock me into the passion of my youth, cause we're done being locked up. We drop the top, hit the switches and tune in to that Maestas case frequency. Civil rights 1914, Alamosa, Corky's roots and Seiste Boulder. Pero we ain't falling back, we're moving forward, Jack. 5-star riders cruising Ross Avenue toward our greatest era, our future town, where La Tierra is front and center, where the little gem that is Zapata Park speaks like, damn homie, if Colorado were the great tree of the world, the San Luis Valley would be the roots, everything flows from here. Open up all options and all pathways clear to the youth. Teleport one generation forward. What future do you choose?
Okay, so just the quick context to that is Future Town. So Molina, he grew up in a small little prison town, and he talks about how he felt. He always felt like growing up, like, man, nothing ever comes here. And a lot of people in small towns, if you're a kid, you feel that when you're seeing, things on TV and whatnot. So part of the idea here is he's working with all these different places and just working with folks there is all right. Well, what if we do that? what if we bring the circus to town, have it stop in some of these places? And so we use local talent and local culture mixed with folks from other towns and mixed with some folks from the Front Range and wherever else. So there's three main things that Future Town has in it. A creative day of service, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a day of service, but it's using art and culture. A People's Town Forum, that's where those programs that I mentioned come into play, because there's a lot of issues that folks are dealing with in these towns. Like in Center, it's a farming town, and the farm owners started their own school district, and the farm workers are left to deal with that. In Leadville, there's a lot of food access issues. So there's a lot of different things. There's some drug issues that folks want to work on in Walsenburg. So that's a place where we can lower some of the temperature by doing something fun, but still let people really dig into it. And then the last thing is the circus, the tour, the whatever the fun thing is that people are into. So that's Future Town. That's our rural work. And I would just say that, close by saying the civic revolution it's already taking place. Like what I'm seeing by all these folks, what they're doing, and we're trying to help it grow where we can. We try to support and highlight and follow those that are leading from a variety of beautiful locations and cultures. And we want to make it as joyous and as meaningful as possible. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Evan Weissman! My dear brother, it's halftime. All right, so today, in the spirit of warm cookies of the revolution, today's halftime show is called Civics 101. And we're going to bring our poet up to the stage, Franklin Cruz, to do a little civics test here with you all. And Franklin, I now am the person with the second best huaraches in the room. Yeah. His beat mine, that's okay. We're going to play a little game here, though. We have some questions that Evan has helped us curate, things we should all know, and we'll see how we do. I took the test earlier, and I'll tell you what, I did not do very well. All right, so first question, Franklin Cruz.
Yeah.
What is the capital
Let's do this.
of Canada? Options are Toronto, Ottawa, Vancouver, or Montreal.
This is where my niche interest in doing random quizzes online is going to pay off.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure this one's Ottawa.
Ottawa. Audience, what
I
say
heard
you? Yeah? The answer is Ottawa. Give it up for Seattle. Give it up for Craig Cruz. Okay. 1 for 1. Doing great. I started out great, too.
Don't say that.
All right, Franklin. Aside from Canada and Mexico, what country is located closest to the United States? Options are Russia, the Bahamas, Cuba, Bermuda.
All right, so I know it's in the Caribbean. Here's the situation. I don't know who's geographically closer between Bahamas and the Caribbean. I know Bahamas is right here, where Cuba's over there.
Okay.
But that distance,
Okay.
I'm going to go, this is a stretch, Bahamas.
Okay. Bahamas. Audience, what say you? Let's see here. We got Russia. Audience takes it. It's Russia. Yeah, think about the...
Oh, the other way.
Yeah.
You know what I completely forgot? To consider Russia.
Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah.
These were the two I got right, and then from me it was downhill. Okay.
There's literally the...
Ready?
Proceed.
All right, here we go.
Proceed.
When did the United States purchase the Alaskan territory? Options are 1901, 1845, 1867, or 1959.
Something in my head tells me, I know it's one of the most recent ones, and I want to be bold and say 1969 and be it's that recent. So I will.
You will.
I will.
1959. That's your answer? Audience?
Wait,
Audience?
is it 59 or 69? Because it says 69 on there.
Okay, this says 59. My
I believe that answer more. Can I go with the answer on your
let's
screen?
go with 69. 69's on there. 59's on my script. Let's do this.
Dang it.
Let's
All
see.
right.
So 1901's leading, 1969 in second place, 1867 in third place, and 1845. It's 1867. Yeah. The United States acquired the Alaskan territory on March 3rd, 1867. The purchase from Russia is commonly known as the Alaska Purchase. The formal transfer occurred on the 18th of October, 1868. Alaska became a state in 1959.
See?
Do you know? All right.
The Instagram reels told me. I just mixed it up in the
Instagram
folders. All right.
I get it. When was the Constitution written? When was the Constitution written? We have 1800, 1774, 1787, or 1776.
So the tiny me's inside of me are telling me that, like, I know that it got adopted in 1776, but I also know that, like, publishing things takes forever, so it's probably 74, because I'm assuming they did edits of that baby before it got, like, to final press.
Okay. 74. You're going.
I know it got fully adopted in 76.
Look at him again.
No, I'm looking at him,
Rewind
Bobby.
your logic.
Bobby, that's not the advice I need.
Okay.
Fine, then by that logic, I'm going with 76, because now you made me doubtful.
Okay. Audience, let's see here. 87. Audience is correct. It's 1787. Yeah, the Constitution of the U.S. was written during the Constitutional Convention, which took place in May 25th to September of that year, and the delegates signed the final draft in 1787.
I'm an ecologist, not a civics person at all.
That's what makes this fun. All right.
For you, this is embarrassing.
Hey, I went through it already. I went through it before you. All right. So before he was president, Eisenhower was a general. What war was he in? Spanish-American, World War I, World War II, or the Korean War?
What year was he? I don't even remember his year.
What
Jesus.
war was he in?
Bobby, I need the year he was alive to know the war. You're not helping me.
Let's start with the audience. Audience, what say you? Let's see what the audience has to say.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
this
all
strategy.
right.
If
We'll
you're wrong, I'm wrong.
Let's see what you say.
I mean, they say World War II.
You gonna go with the audience? You gonna phone a friend?
You know, can I phone a friend?
Let's try it. Never done it.
Miriam, damn it. That's the only friend I had in the crowd. Who looks confident? You, raise the hand. Cool. I'm going to go with the majority answer because the man in the crowd told me to.
Correct. World War II.
I'm coming back to you to the last one.
All right, so one more.
Yeah.
Name one of the two longest rivers in the United States. The Rio Grande, the Columbia, the Colorado, the Mississippi.
Yeah, the Mississippi, I know that one, yeah. This is ecology. See? I'm in my house now.
Give it up for Franklin Cruz.
Jesus.
Give it up for yourselves. And that concludes our halftime. On with the show. I'd like to introduce our next guest who will be speaking to us about Infal Records. Juan Fuentes is a photo-based artist born in Chihuahua, Mexico, and raised in the north side of Denver, Colorado. His kinship to the barrio is evident within his photography, installations, and community projects, which explore intimate stories of everyday life of immigrants and Chicanos in the United States. Utilizing photographs, Juan examines the visual and emotional artifacts of memory, erasure, and family, creating records that affirm and center marginalized communities. Juan has exhibited at various institutions and galleries in Colorado, including Denver Art Museum, History Colorado Center, Museo de las Americas, Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, Redline Contemporary Art Center, and MCA Denver, among many others. Welcome my brother Juan Fuentes to the stage.
All right, before I get started, I think we need to kind of set the mood a little bit. So I'm gonna play some music.
Ay, cómo sufro al recordar que me quisiste hasta el final. Y sin embargo me alejé sin darme cuenta de ese amor que hoy en mi vida es dolor. Quisiera verte una vez más para decirte la verdad, Y si perdonas mi maldad, yo sé que aún puedo lograr tranquilidad y felicidad. Como quisiera verte ahora para decirte lo que siento, que sin tu amor me estoy muriendo y en tus recuerdos me sostengo. Decirte que te necesito.
All right. So, what we just listened to is a beautiful and soulful bolero from Infal Records titled Como Sufro by Pancho Soto. But can you believe that this was recorded and distributed here in Denver, or I guess Commerce City, I should say, as it said on the label there? Yes, believe it or not, through the 1960s, the 70s, and 80s, there was quite a few record labels based out of Denver that were all founded and operated by Mexicanos and Chicanos living in the Denver area and throughout Colorado, especially in the valley. But that music being recorded was also very Mexican, very Chicano. There was rancheras, mariachi, corridos, norteñas, boleros like we were just listening to, soldies, and even garage rock. Infal Records was started by Victor Manuel Hernandez Rodriguez, and very little is known about where exactly it started or where the location of the first studio was, but the first releases are all credited in Commerce City. And through my research, I've connected with just a handful of people that knew Victor or of Victor, but I haven't been able to get that much information quite yet about him or the record label. So instead of like trying to reference some of these like word of mouth stories, I'll read an obituary that I found of his. He passed away in 2013 when he was 85 years old. And this is his, just an excerpt of the obituary. Victor was born in Ameca, Jalisco, Mexico on August 8th, 1927 to Maria A. Rodriguez Villaseñor and Alberto Linares. In 1949, Victor moved from Mexico City to Denver to pursue new opportunities. It was in Denver that he met Maria Joyce and Steven at La Bonita restaurant. After a short courtship and engagement, they were married on March 4th, 1951. In 1953, Victor was hired by the Gates Rubber Company. He had a very rewarding 34-year career at Gates. His job title was liner rewind. He was proud of becoming a qualified forklift operator and a hose finisher, as well as a steward. Though Victor made a living and provided for his family as a Gates mechanic, he was always working to better himself. He acquired a communications diploma from DeVry Technical Institute. This helped launch his career in music recording and radio broadcasting. Victor's real passion was music. Victor built his first recording studio in the garage at a Bel Air Street home he called Hernando's Recordings. Soon after, he renamed the business to Infal Records for Infallibles, which means will never fail. This name is one of many examples of Victor's quick and creative mind. As part of promoting his business and connecting to the community, Victor organized and hosted regular dances at the Colorado Grange Hall and the GAO. These dances featured groups who had recorded with Victor. At the dances, his daughters worked the coat room and did waitressing. As the business grew, he expanded to a record shop and larger recording studio at 2144 Champa Street in downtown Denver. All of the family worked the record shop and have fond memories of talking to customers and enjoying the latest Spanish and top 40 hits. He later purchased a larger building a block down at 2217 Champa Street and was able to have a music shop, recording studio, and a home on the second floor. In 2006, he relocated to his home on Federal Street, again building his recording studio plus adding a DVD/video recording and duplication studio. After Victor retired from Gates in 1987, he was really able to pursue his passion for music and focus on his Infal studio on videotaping of weddings, quinceañeras, etc. As technology changed our world, Victor changed with the times, moving from LPs, 8-tracks, cassettes, videos, rentals, and finally a videographer. In his spare time between recording gigs, he kept up with the ever-changing technology. Victor had great pride and confidence in his business and loved to promote them. Uncle Jorge tells how he and Victor would go to the bars. Victor would buy a beer for the band members, made quick friends, and convinced them that they had great talent and should make recording to share with the rest of the world. Of course, Victor conveniently knew of a very good recording studio where they could make this recording. Another time, while visiting Ruth and Bob in Houston, we went to Lakewood Church and met Joel Osteen. While shaking his hand, Victor presented Joel with his Infal business card and said, "If you ever need help recording, give me a call." We all laughed at his confidence and boldness. Victor worked hard to build his business, even until his last days. Victor was granted an FCC radio operator's license, and he used this to share the microphone with Andres Neidig on several Spanish-speaking radio stations in Denver and Brighton. Victor had a gift of gab, and he was very good on the radio. His last gig was calling in regularly for a Palabra del Día, or Word of the Day segment. Victor developed many long-term friends in the radio business. So in the obituary, we learned a bit about Victor and the whereabouts of the recording studio. It started in his garage somewhere in Commerce City. And later we learned about 2 addresses in downtown Denver, right? Through my research, I wasn't able to find many archival photographs of his studio or anything like that. But that first address is 2144 Champion Street. And it is now a building occupied by the Salvation Army right off of Champa on Broadway. This is actually a photograph that I took. The second address is 1 block away at 2217 Champa Street. To my knowledge, this was the last place they operated from. Again, these are photos that I took of the building currently, and this is now a behavioral health center. And what I loved about going and documenting these buildings was that they were only about 2 blocks away from where my studio is at. I'm off of 24th and Champa, so I was able to walk over and take these photos. But I think, these buildings, I always drive down Champa when I go home from the studio. And it's cool now because I get to kind of reflect and daydream a little bit about, like, knowing that there was Chicanos and Mexicanos making music right there in the heart of the downtown and in the east side of Denver. And just thinking about, maybe hearing rancheras being played while they were recording in the neighborhood that, got gentrified and a lot of people had to be displaced. So let's listen again to some more music.
El haberme traicionado ya pagará el mal que me has causado.
All right, well, I think it seems like not many full albums were recorded on Infal. The majority of the releases were like 1 or 2 songs by each artist and pressed on a small 7-inch vinyl, 45. But one of the few LPs or full-length albums recorded was this record by Los Alvarados titled El Movimiento Chicano. With this album, we see the connection to the Chicano movement in Denver, specifically the Crusade for Justice, a Chicano civil rights organization started by Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez, one of the 4 horsemen of the Chicano movement. So we find out that the music being recorded was not just love songs, right? they were also political and telling the stories of the brown folks speaking up for the injustices happening during the late 60s and 70s. This is a record that documents the civic voice of the people in the Chicano community here in Denver at that time. This is artwork in the lyric sheet of this record that's highlighting the Escuela Tlatelolco, an important school born out of the Crusade for Justice in the early 70s. It provided an alternative education for young Chicanos and Mexicanos. And it wasn't just focused on academic proficiency, but also it instilled cultural pride, confidence, and leadership among that brown youth. The escuela served Denver community for over 4 decades before it closed in 2017. Here are the lyrics to some of the songs by the Alvarados. I'll be reading in Spanish, but hopefully, I think, yeah, you could be able to see the lyrics there. So if you do not understand Spanish, hopefully you can follow along with the English versions. This one is titled Yo Soy Chicano. Yo soy chicano, tengo color, puro chicano, hermano con honor. Cuando me dicen que hay revolución, defiendo a mi raza con mucho valor. Tengo todita la gente para la revolución. Voy a luchar con los pobres para que se acabe el bolón. Tengo mi par de pistolas para la revolución. Aún es una 30-30. Y la otra es una 32. Tengo, sorry, it's like super blurry on my screen, but I'm trying to get through it. Tengo mi par de caballos para la revolución. Uno se llama Camaro, el otro se llama Gorrión. Tengo mi orgullo y machismo, mi cultura y corazón. Tengo mi fe, mi diferencia y lucho con gran razón. Tengo todita mi gente para la revolución. Voy a luchar con los pobres para que se acabe el bolón. Tengo mi orgullo, tengo mi fe, soy diferente, soy color café. Tengo cultura, tengo corazón y no me lo quitan a mí ningún cabrón. This is another song titled Primer Jefe de Aztlán. And this is about Corky Gonzalez. I'll read it off of this. I think it's a little easier. Corky es su nombre de la libertad adelante de su gente, con verdad. Griten mis carnales, con todita la alma, adelante con justicia y valor. Es bueno de corazón, sabrosito de amor. Es bueno de corazón, sabrosito del amor. Oigan mis obreros, sigan adelante, porque Aztlán es la tierra de mi amor. Ganan los chicanos la revolución porque estamos ya cansados de opresión. So there's a few more. For example, this is for Luis Jr. Martinez, a member of the Crusade for Justice who was killed by police in 1973. And then this is another full-length album. There's only a few, and these are some of the few that I was able to find. This one's by Mac McEvely, House of Power, recorded in New York City's Carnegie Hall. So who would have thought a little record label coming out of Denver would be able to record in Carnegie Hall? We got Antonio Lozano Núñez con su grupo Gran Vida, La Coquetona Cumbia. María Linda, Se extravió una carta. But let's get back to listening to it.
No me dejes de amar, ni vayas a llorar. Me llevan de soldado, regadío, que no me mate, que pronto vuelva a tu lado a ser tuyo una vez más.
So, I mean, Infal, short for infallible, meaning will never fail. Yet, in addition to the information we learned through the obituary, the Colorado Music Hall of Fame member, Dr. George Keeger, they connected with the family in the 80s, and at that time, he found out that the warehouse where all the Infal records were housed were actually cleared out and dumped in a landfill nearby. So it sounds like a tragic ending, right? But was it really? I feel like many of those records might have been dumped or lost, but there's quite a few that are still out there. And to me, I don't feel like they've forgotten. There's a few of us here in Colorado that are kind of digging through, yard sales, the Segunda, record shops, running into somebody that might have some. Actually, Bobby tonight told me, oh, my grandpa had like at least, I remember that label, he might have like 5 of them or something. So it's all like making those connections and trying to find some of those ones that survived. But I took this photo. Here you see a good friend of mine, Imer Morales, and him and I were digging through this basement looking for some of these Infal records or just other records from Denver. But this wasn't this ordinary basement. This was the basement of Bobby G. Bobby G is a legendary DJ here in Denver. Used to be in KUVO. But he's been, he was part of the family with, not with Infal Records, but he was actually Luis Jr. Martinez's brother. So he was around during the Crusade for Justice. And man, if this man could be here instead of me and tell you the stories, it would be great, but he was in New Mexico. He lives here, but he kind of goes back and forth. He has a radio station out there as well, and one here. But here are some other record labels outside of Infal that came out of Denver as well. This is Aguila Records, and this was on 1015 Federal Boulevard. I wanted to add the address so y'all could kind of locate where that was. And here we have Los Gorriones del Norte, Eliseo Pando, Los Rancheritos de Durango, Enrique Blanco, Los Flores. We had Edel Records on 1122 30th Ave, Edelmiro Zúñiga y su conjunto. Flecha Records on 2594 Colorado Boulevard. Mexica Records, 4757 Clayton Street. Keke Records, 895 Sherman Street. Rayo Records, 3785 Federal Boulevard. Shag Records, 760 Irving Street. Sarco Records, 1015 Federal Boulevard. I believe that all these record labels did not completely fade away. I feel like Victor did not fail with Infal. He created an important soundtrack for this occupied land during a very important time period. And it feels great to play some of those songs here today in the north side of Denver, in a historically brown neighborhood and venue. And all I'm going to leave you all with is Infallible. Thank you.
Give it up for Juan Fuentes. All right, we're going to get started with our Q&A here shortly, but I want to show you again the person that makes the best connection this evening. Let's listen to this song, actually. I'm talking too much. more time for the music. So once again, we got the QR code here. Now is the time for you all to make some connections between what you heard tonight. We're going to bring our guests back to the stage here shortly. But before we do, I want to show you tonight's prize for the person that makes the best connection between Infal Records and the Civic Revolution. We have a Give Me Your Love candle that smells marvelous. It's a hard candy and gardenia, which is an interesting mix, but it works. And then we've got some letterpress coasters that are really, really awesome. So please throw your questions into the chat. We will, let's welcome our speakers back to the stage. Yeah. Juan, Evan, please join me. We are going to celebrate the connections you make in these questions with this gong this evening. So anytime you make that connection, we're going to have fun with that gong. Let's see what we got here. You guys feeling all right? Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm going to have to go dig through my grandpa's records because I know he's got a couple of them joints in there. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's get into this Q&A. Let's see what we've got here in this audience. What we got here, what we're working with. Let's see here. Small local actions can have lasting impact across generations. How have local record labels influenced civic actions or rebellion and vice versa? Yeah.
That's a good question.
It's a good one. What y'all think?
Oh, I guess it's both. You said vice versa. I
Yeah.
gotta think for a second.
Yeah, that's a deep one.
You said, let me just make sure I understood it correctly. Small actions.
Let me read again.
Yeah,
Small
okay.
local actions can have lasting impact across generations. How have local record labels influenced civic actions or rebellion and vice versa?
I mean, the first thing that I think of, it's actually just seeing all the stuff from, from the Crusade for Justice and from the Chicano movement. I mean, that seemed to be, at least for Denver, that seemed pretty on the nose answer, that you had activists working and doing things, and then the music, and who knows, Juan should maybe, if you know, speak to which came first there, or if they were symbiotic or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what came first, but I think it's important that there were these small record labels recording and documenting some of that. Because, at the time, 60s, 70s, some of it could have been photographed or written about or documented in some ways. But the fact that a small record label putting out love songs decided to put emphasis on what was happening civically, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and then we know that there's no movement there's no revolution without the poets and the music.
Yeah, exactly.
And so these things were happening simultaneously. And then to your point, it's like this served as like a place for that stuff to live into the future, right? To document those things. These are historic images that you showed on some of these records, and to have the foresight to say, hey, this is what we're going to do to keep this stuff alive, especially in a city like Denver. So many of these places happen around where we're sitting right now, which is actually interesting too. In the basement of this theater, there's a sign that says, this was a movie house at one point that played Spanish-speaking movies, and there's a cool sign in the basement that says, please remove your sombrero when the movie starts, right? Because we had our sombreros on. Second question is, this is an anonymous. Be sure to put your name on these questions because, again, the best one gets a gift. Can you talk about what got you interested in learning about Infal Records and why it's been so hard to find information about it? It's for you, Juan. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what got me interested was just I started noticing the city on the record, because I would find it, and I think I might have seen it in the past, and because I'm an avid collector of all types of music, sometimes you overlook a certain record label because you're like, oh, I gotta find this, this one joint that I'm looking. But I started noticing the city on there, so I was like, oh shoot, I wonder what this sounds like. It was made in Denver. And from there, just kind of, I picked up a record at the flea market once, and it was an Infal Records, and it was like a mariachi song. And later on, connected with my friend Emer, who you photographed there, and realized that he was on the hunt for some of those. And from there, looking online, not seeing much, I went, well, this was here. There's got to be people still here that have some connections. But no, it's been super slow. I don't know if it's some of the family members might have archived or saved some of that the photos or some of those records, or have more information overall. But to me, the main source right now is Bobby G. I mean, he had a bunch. He had a record store at one point, and he sold a bunch of stuff. So I know there's other people that are interested, and they're floating around out there. But I think there's a lot of them probably just like collecting dust in people's basements too.
Yeah, it's wild because it says a lot about like the foresight to document those things or to like write about the histories. But I think as artists and creative people and makers and doers, sometimes we're so involved in just doing the thing that we don't think about the legacy that's going to live after us when we're making those things.
There was a librarian at the I guess maybe the State Historical Society or something, but I was talking to her years ago, and she was saying, this was when I was at the theater, she's saying, can you please put the year on your posters, like when we would advertise stuff? Because it was just for that, like, we don't think about it, we're just like, yeah, it's happening June 5th, yeah, come on by. And she's like, it's such a pain, just please put the year on it.
The
It's kinda like what
archivist.
you're saying,
What am I supposed to do
Archivist,
with
that's
this?
the word I was looking for, yeah.
Another anonymous person who doesn't want a gift this evening. Let's see here. America had a strong history of protest songs. Have we lost that tradition? And what role can they play today as media-saturated world? In today's media-saturated world?
I don't think so. I mean, it's maybe, you know, because it's media saturated, it's also kind of corporate controlled, and so I don't think you get them as pop music as much, you know. But I mean, I think with pretty much anything that's going on, there's you can look to, whether it's in kind of smaller genres that kind of always have that. Like, I feel like a lot of punk and hardcore has that kind of vibe. A lot of hip hop has that. And I think, but yeah, I think that there is. I still, I mean, I heard something just, I don't know what it was, a month or two ago, from what's his name, from Seattle. He just had one about Gaza. Macklemore, you know?
Macklemore, yeah.
And yeah, I think there's like, there's, I think it's always there. It's just how much is it in front of our eyeballs?
Yeah, I mean, it's saturated, but I think nowadays with the technology and the not having to like need those corporate record labels and all that, there's a lot of artists just, you know, directly, they're putting stuff directly to people's hands without the middleman, and with that, you know, they don't have to worry about any type of censorship. And I think there is a lot of people out there speaking about what's going on and have their own following.
Yeah, I think it's important too to note that, like, I love the internet. I think the, you know, online engagement's incredible. The ability to, like, you know, create content, create art, and put it out there into the world, you know, quickly is important. But I also think the people-to-people work is still important. It reminds me of a local group years ago, the Flowbots. They were working on a project. Yeah, give it up for the Flowbots. Yeah, they were working on a project to write new protest songs, right? Because we go to these marches, those of us who are in these streets doing that work, and we have the same chants from the 60s and 70s, and I love them joints. They you know, they worked and they still work, but what does it mean to reimagine, you know, movement work and music and those types of things? So I think that there's artists still to this day trying to figure out what the future of that looks like, which I think is really cool. Rodrigo asks, is it possible that corridos, is there possible that corridos be the way for young Latinx people to engage in public affairs? So can corridos be the way in which young people, you know, participate?
Man, it's actually pretty interesting how there's a boom in that right now. There's so many, I also teach high schoolers, and there's so many of the high schoolers that are picking up accordions, picking up instruments, and they are telling stories. That's what corridos are. They're telling the stories for the people, for their communities, and you know, there's always a stigma attached to corridos with narco culture and all that. But corridos on its own, it was all about storytelling and telling the stories of the people. And I think there's a lot of young kids that are doing just that, and I think it's amazing to see.
Mm-hmm. Using that old way of communicating in modern ways. Any touch there, Evan?
I mean, I just think, you know, I can't speak as much to the music side of it, but just culture in general. I think of, like, it's always going to be there. There's always, I just think not all art is political or is social, but most people who've got something to say, especially if the context and circumstances aren't, if they don't feel free, I think that it's going to come out in some way. And I think just even being here on the north side and then the west side, thinking of like the Chicano muralists, like specifically doing that because, well, if we can't be in the museums and we can't be in galleries, this is where we're going to do it, And I think some of the guys in some of the car clubs, just like we're gonna put our culture onto these cars, or I just think it always comes out in different ways, and I think that if you're preserving culture and celebrating your culture, there's something very strongly social and civic and political about that, especially when you're under threat.
Yeah, everything's in conversation. I love that. The hyphen asks, if Infal Records released a record about the local Denver communities today, what would it be called? What would they be talking about on Infal Records 2024?
Man,
Who
they'd
would
be
be
talking
on it?
about the suburbs.
Yeah, they'd be talking about being outside the city.
Yeah, being talk about how we can't afford to be here. Talking about a lot of the similar things, really.
Maybe some love. There's still some of that
Oh,
too.
yeah, definitely.
That's good. Any? What do you think?
I don't think I can top that.
Yeah.
I think the suburb, yeah.
That's crazy. That's a wild, thing to think about. They'd be talking about the thing that isn't the thing. Yeah. JW asks, what can be done about resort towns where wealthy homeowners get to vote in city elections year-round, but year-round, workers who live the next town over are locked out? Let me reread that. What can be done about resort towns where wealthy homeowners get to vote in city elections, but year-round workers who live the next town over are locked out? Yeah.
I know I don't have an answer for that. I don't live in those communities, and I can't speak to it, but I do know from going and participating in some of the programs that the folks who are doing it under the auspices of Warm Cookies, especially like in Leadville, we've done a bunch of stuff over the past few years, and so you've got a lot of people there who work in like the Ville Valley, and one of the major things for them, I don't know if it even comes down to like, can they vote on something, but it comes down to like the basics of, food is expensive, and what kind of food are we going to have? But so I don't know. I personally, again, I don't live there, but personally, I think if we could expand tax bases, and I think about this for Denver a lot too, from an alien, if a smart alien was looking down, would be like, all right, so we have this gentrification, and a lot of people, we just displaced them, and so we were dealing with like, can we defend the neighborhood or can we not? Well, then you've got this other area that we don't even talk about, like the suburbs, so it's like, does Denver owe Thornton and Commerce City and Aurora? Do we owe them something? And where does like the kind of wealthier suburbs play into any of that? And so I think no politician is going to say this. They're not going to say, let's take our tax base and give it to another village. But I think there's something to that. There has to be some kind of regional shared cooperation. The same way like the air we breathe and our bus system, like there are some ways that we could be a little more regional. But
Yeah.
I don't know the exact ways to do it.
Yeah. Anything on that one?
Yeah.
It makes me think, I wrote a whole play about this neighborhood where we're sitting in, and I, there's definitely like an ownership and a territorial nature when you're losing something in a power struggle. But then I think about like my other views around borders, and I think we all, as homies for a while doing work in and out of community, I think about what you said, Evan. It makes me think about our cities just different borders that we need to also work on dismantling, right? And how does that then create more room for civic engagement and creativity to flow in and out of these places that's just wide open as opposed to, kind of siloed out? I don't know. It's something to think about. Medium asks, how do you all plan to collaborate? Music is at the root of politics and is usually used when all other forms of political dissent is outlawed. Example, slave songs. I wonder if that's in relation to how we collaborate or just the general we.
Yeah, we've collaborated. I don't know. I don't know where. Yeah, I'd have to think about that a little more.
I have a thing. I have not brought this up. I was just thinking of Juan, and I'm sure Bobby would be pulled in, but we're planning on doing an atlas where people would come to like a place in the city and learn about the political history or the social history, or like have an herbalist talk about what kind of plants there are or whatever it might be, and then some surprises. But like I could see that being an interesting thing, just even seeing the last records that you had up there, like getting a little tour from you about maybe going to these locations and getting like an expanded version of this, so people could learn that history alongside, you know, someone like Phil Goodstein or someone who knows some other bit of history.
Yeah.
Just like map on map, you know, like to kind of know a little bit more. Anyways, but maybe we could find some of the folks who recorded, or and have them play. I don't know. It's good question. Good idea.
And I think, I mean, as I'm going deeper into the research, I'm trying to figure out what the best way to archive this, and not just archive it myself, but, you know, put it in an institution so it is more accessible. So it's not just people coming to me, because I don't consider myself an expert in it. I'm a crazy record collector.
Yeah.
But yeah, thinking about collaborating with not just the community, but with an institution, I think feels important.
Yeah, and it's very specific too, because a lot of the music that would be created, you know, then like Colorado, New Mexico, the Southwest has a very specific culture. It's very, you know, there's this marriage of all these things from Mexico, indigenous ways. You know, the music of Southern Colorado and Northern New Mexico is very specific. Yeah. And it's cool that, you know, there was a place, a repository for that stuff to exist and live in. And yeah, we have to document that along with all the other, you know, things in that history. I think it's Ronnie is asking, do you know of any independent or pirate radio stations operating out of Colorado today? Is anyone doing something similar to what Infal was doing back in the day? Anything mirror that in the modern context?
Like I say, I mean, there's a lot of teenagers, I'm sure, recording. I don't know if, you know, in the digital age, they're just kind of going straight to the internet, so I don't think there's like physical aspect of that. Mm-hmm. But I think it's still important that it lives in some sort of platform. But I'm just not too tapped into that. I know that they have their own kind of revolution going, and I'm curious to see where it goes. As far as like radio shows, I mean, Bobby G still has he's operating out of his basement, and you know, has a Saturday show where you could still call in physically.
Wow.
And, I would assume that there's younger folks doing the same thing, not in those ways, but figuring out ways to get their stuff out.
Yeah, and I think about like the continuation of some of this history too, with some of the OGs that are still on Cubo doing like Canción Mexicana, that are playing regional music. Yeah, give it up for that.
Yeah.
You know, so there's like a cool, I think there needs to be an intergenerational, you know, conversation. I think that's one thing you do well, I mean, is bringing people together, you know, from different walks of life, different generations, to have those conversations. All right, last question. It's an easy one.
I was just going to say,
yeah, please.
If the person is particularly interested in pirate radio station, Adán de la Garza is an artist in town, and he was telling me he's sort of exploring using pirate radio, like really short throw radio for different things. I don't know what it's going to look like coming up. We might collaborate on something, but yeah, Adán de la Garza, you could talk with him.
Love it. Stay tuned. So Dan G asks, true or false? Infal is a warm cookie of the revolution.
True.
True. Yeah?
True.
We could agree that's true. Yeah. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Evan. Give it up for your speakers one more time.
Yeah.
We're done. Yes, you can exit. All right, so now we have this lovely prize here. Our digital producer, Dele, chooses the most interesting connection of the evening, and that person is going to receive this wonderful grab bag. So last week, because the person that received it wasn't in the audience, so I was like, and the winner is Renee H. Whole crowd went wild. And then I was like, and the winner is Renee H. No Renee H. So hopefully they're in the building tonight. Let's see who won. All right. Mink asked, Small local actions can have lasting impact across generations. How have local record labels influenced civic actions and vice versa? I think it's Mink, M-I-N-C-K. Are you in the building? Come on up and get your prize. Congratulations. Yes, got it. All right, so one of my favorite parts of the evening is when we have the poet come up and bless us with their interpretation of what happened this evening. And I get to welcome my brother Franklin Cruz up to the stage to share with you an original poem that Franklin created while sitting here with you all this evening. Franklin is an amazing poet, person, and science nerd. Welcome Franklin Cruz to the stage.
Hi, y'all. Good to meet y'all. Hopefully, y'all have had a good night. I am going to improvise a poem. I never write my poems for mixed taste, so I don't know what's about to happen. Oh, if I have a homie in the room, I always forget, can someone record this? Because like afterwards, I'm like, oh, I should have wrote that down. So I'll give someone who loves me 5 seconds to pull out a phone, and then we'll see what happens on stage. Sound good? Awesome. Also, who's been to a poetry crowd? Real quick. Oh, I'm gonna rely on you 4 people to do a lot of work and snap and like show the non-poet people that you don't have to be polite during a poetry show. Cool. Every single time I want to start a revolution, I have to go to the kitchen first. I have to make sure the water is prepped. I have to make sure the fruit is cut. I have to make sure everything is in bags and organized for the different sites. I have to make sure everyone is ready for the revolution. Inside of that bag, you will find a mixtape. It's kind of old school, but I want to remind you that even when things are back to batteries and chargeables, you can still find music in the hardest places. When revolutions come, pick up the poetry books. Those are the fools who have gotten the words to slice down enemies, so make sure you put them in your pocket. When the revolution comes, go to the dancers. They are the ones who will keep you fit and still make it fun. That way, exercise will not take you down. When the revolution comes, make sure that you can at least harmonize with everyone else. You don't have to be the soloist. You don't have to be the one in the middle of the stage, but just carry along the melody so that everyone can still feel the rhythms and all the hum inside. Take a second to feel the hum from inside. It's a small buzz, like a single bee inside of a colony. She is holding all of her sisters up, and the queen and the next 7 generations behind her. The men are off doing what we do best, probably taking up space, because women honestly are the ones who are holding up the revolution. That's why all my songs are from my grandma. That's why most of the good books are still in the forest with the women tending to the gardens. Do you know that in the corn women, they sing to the corn so that it grows up healthy? This is the practice of revolution. You don't always have to be in the streets. The garden is still a revolutionary place. The kitchen is still a revolutionary place. You by yourself, taking care of yourself to show up tomorrow is still a revolutionary place. When we talk about the revolution, I'd like to think it's more ecological. That even if one cell dies, the next one comes in and we still have a generation swelling behind us. That the changes we give are genetic and will continue on for the generations to come. This is the revolution that I am dreaming of, one that the trees can participate in, one that the ocean has a vote in, one where the air has a voice in as much as a Homo sapien. A revolution does not have to stay just in policies. A revolution is an ecological thing. It is a thing of societies. It is a thing of Homo sapiens. It is a thing of you and me and song and sustenance. This is revolution.
Give it up for Franklin Cruz. You know, as a poet myself, I would never be able to come up here and freestyle that. Give it up one more time for the poet. God bless the poets. Thank you, Evan and Juan. Thank you, audience, for joining us. And join us next week for our last mixed taste of the season with Aurora Borealis and wood-type printing. Good night.